It's a quiz. It's a quiz for everybody out there. Who do you think benefits the most from DEI programs? Time's up. This was a real lesson for me. I was shocked by what I found. I kind of ashamed of myself that I didn't know.
Hi, Mom.
Hello, child.
So DEI has been in the news a lot lately. We've been talking about it, but you recently came across some information that a lot of people probably wouldn't expect from DEI. What did you learn?
All right. So, I kind of did it a little bit backwards. You and I had a long discussion about DEI. And my thinking is I want what I say to you to just come out of my own life experience and my own opinions. I don't want to parrot somebody else's. I think it's useful to just get that unvarnished opinion about this. And that's what I did. And then I went back and I said, okay, now I'm going to look up some stuff and see if my opinion really needs to be modified, if I have to change my views in any way, because I think that's important. I would say for the most part, I haven't really fundamentally changed my views, but I wouldn't be talking to you again if what I found out didn't completely shock me. And I think it's kind of worthwhile to tell people what I found out, and I'm interested in what they think. I went into it thinking, okay, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? It's not a welfare program. It's not a handout. That was my opinion. It's not like, well, you're really not qualified for this job, but we're going to hire you anyway because something, diversity.
Right.
No, it's not that. It's basically saying, you know what? Qualified people come in every shape, size, color, religion, gender, age, rich people, poor people. You can find them if you look. And truthfully, we all have our own biases, and we like to hire people from our tribe, people that we feel comfortable with. And you know what? We really need to open our eyes for a lot of reasons. First, because it's fair. And second, because there's immense talent out there if you just go and look for it. And what DEI is saying, go out and look for it. You don't have to hire unqualified people. You just have to hire different people. I mean, how many movies do we have to see, right, before we realize that, hey, Black women can work as engineers at NASA, or people who are completely paralyzed except for their left foot can be incredible artists, or, a million other things. Women can be surgeons. Can you imagine that?
Right.
So that's kind of what I think of as DEI, right? And it's been around for 60 years. It's not new, but suddenly, I don't know, in the last 5 years, it became a shorthand for hiring unqualified Black people.
Yeah.
To jobs that should go to white people. So I wanted to kind of get to the bottom of that and see kind of what I thought, what other people thought. Okay, so here's a little quiz. Who do you think benefits most from DEI programs? They did a survey. The Pew Research people, they're pretty good. They did a survey about 5 months ago to get people's opinions. And if you said Black people, most people agree with that. A lot of people don't have opinions, which is fair. They don't know enough, and that's fair. But the one thing that got a majority of votes is Black women benefit and Black men benefit. Do white women benefit? A lot of people don't know. If you had asked me, I would have said, well, I'm not really sure, but probably somewhat.
Right.
And that's what 30% of people say yes. Almost as many say they are hurt by it, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But almost nobody thinks that white men are benefited.
Right.
Like 14%. But a lot of people think that they're hurt by it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the general opinion. All right, so that's where we stand. Fortunately, the government actually kept statistics because this has been going on for 60 years. It's not like it happened yesterday. And you can look it up, except you can't because they took all that information off the web. And
Not anymore.
Yeah, you can't find it anymore. But when there were people who were looking and they did find out, it's a quiz. It's a quiz for everybody out there. Who do you think benefits the most from DEI programs? Time's up. Black people? No. White women. Overwhelmingly. Now, there are a lot of reasons for that. And I'm not going to get into that now because that's a whole other discussion. But I will say that one of the reasons is that 50 years of affirmative action got a lot of women into the workplace where they were in a position to take advantage of a new push to say, hey, we need to look for qualified people. They were already in the workplace because of affirmative action. That was one of the reasons. But be that as it may. All right. So who's the second biggest beneficiary of DEI programs? Time's up. Black people?
You would think so. I mean, most people in America apparently think so.
Yeah, most people think so. No. The second biggest beneficiary of DEI programs is white men. And when I read that, I was completely shocked. I mean, aren't these the people who are complaining about DEI and saying that if it wasn't for them, these other people, that these qualified white guys would be in the workplace and they're losing their spots to DEI people? And isn't it terrible? How is it possible that white men are the second biggest beneficiaries? It just blew my mind.
Did you find out why that was?
Well, I mean, it's hard to kind of track down because I don't have access to the statistics anymore. And I would have done a much deeper dive into them. But the reality is that when you're talking about diversity, so many people think white and black. And that's diversity. But talent is everywhere. It's in all kinds of overlooked communities. And white men happen to belong to some of those communities. So if you look at who benefits, white women, white men, Hispanics, Asians, Native Americans, disabled people, and that's not just people in wheelchairs. It's neuroatypical people, people on the spectrum, people who, are dyslexic, have the Spilkus, ADHD, followed by veterans, LGBTQ, and alphabet people like me. And at the very bottom, Black people. White men, of course, are not a uniform group,
Right.
as much as we think so. They are vets. They are disabled. They are LGBTQ, whatever. They are poor. And in all of those categories of diverse talent benefit from DEI programs, and they're all majority white.
Right.
So, of course, white people are going to benefit more from DEI programs. And they're also going to be hurt the most by taking them away.
Yeah.
Just by population, white people are going to be the majority in LGBTQ and, disabled. But let's talk about poor people. Poor people are massively benefited by DEI programs. And most poor people are white. There are programs that universities have that outreach, for example, to people in rural counties, because those kids would never be able to get into those schools. They don't have the money. They don't have, the background in education. Their high schools can't afford advanced placement and all these kind of things that universities like. These schools have financial aid packages and they outreach to those kids and they want them in their schools. Those kids might not even realize that. And that population is overwhelmingly white. And veterans, God bless every single one of them, 8 out of 10 veterans in this country are white, and 9 out of 10 are men. And veterans are one of the hugest groups benefiting from DEI programs. I'm just going to take a couple more minutes. I'm going to tell you about a YouTube that I saw of this white woman saying, name one thing that DEI has done that's good. So I'm going to give you a couple of things. These poor kids from the, impoverished, from rural counties, all of those programs go away. Those were getting kids who were really smart and really talented and could really succeed, and bringing them into the educated workforce. That all goes away. Kids who want to really do something, be leaders of tomorrow in the government. The best way to do that is to get an internship, right, with somebody in Congress. But they can't afford it. It's very expensive, and those are unpaid. Biden said, this is really important. I'm going to pay the interns so that they can be, in the government and learn all those things. And that was a DEI program. That goes away. And all kinds of things happened because of DEI that I don't think DEI required. But once you get a really qualified person that you had never looked at before into your company, you start to realize, wow, part of the reason we didn't look was because they have special needs.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a working mother. We didn't like to hire working mothers. You're not allowed to discriminate, but we kind of did because we know they have responsibilities for kids. But once we hired this woman, she was awesome. She was amazing. And the fact that she had to leave early on Thursday, and sometimes she couldn't come into the office because she had to take care of the kids. We're going to make accommodations for her. We're going to have flexible work schedules. We're going to have flexible hours for her. This disabled person is so good, but he needs a special monitor or something. We're going to buy him that. All of these benefits that came to people with, who were entering the workforce because they were so good, but they couldn't do it before because there were no accommodations being made for them. All of a sudden, the companies were doing that. That all goes away unless you are protected by some other law. That all goes away. And that's another good thing that happened because of DEI. So the last thing I want to talk about is this. There is one group who is a DEI group who gets extra points when they apply for a job, especially with the federal government. They get 10 to 15 extra points that have nothing to do with their qualifications. They have only to do with the fact that they belong to this certain group. They get a leg up on every other applicant. And who is that group? Another quiz. Black people?
If you believe the anti-DEI propaganda, all we're hearing is that these groups are giving special advantages and they're unqualified.
Yeah. And there is one group that gets special advantages that have nothing to do with qualifications. Veterans. 10 to 15 extra points when they apply to the federal government on their application just because they're veterans. If they're disabled veterans, they get more. Did you know that 620,000, almost a third of the federal workforce, which is enormous, is veterans? And the government bends over backwards with programs for them because clearly it's a difficult situation. And I think that every red-blooded American is absolutely okay with that for all that they've suffered and all that they've gone through and all that they've given up to defend the country. But isn't it so interesting that everyone quickly jumps to think that the most advantaged group are a minority, when actually the group that's advantaged, in fact, happens to be overwhelmingly white?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, name one benefit of DEI. If you're a MAGA, I give you J.D. Vance, who is now the vice president of these United States. J.D. Vance was helped to get into Yale Law School by DEI because Yale University had a special, and still to this maybe don't have it anymore, but had a special program of outreach to vets. They called it the Yellow Ribbon Program after Tony Orlando, which people in my generation know. If you don't know, look it up. His song about the yellow ribbon.
Yeah.
So a classmate of J.D. Vance's, who was also in the military with him and got into Yale Law School at the same time as him, is on the internet right now saying, don't forget, Mr. Vance, that you and I got into Yale Law School because of DEI, because they looked at us and they said, we need a more diverse, qualified group of vets in our law school. And we went out and we reached out to them and we helped them get in because we wanted that diversity. Most universities have outreach to vets. Now, some of the benefits that vets have are not going to go away because Trump is protecting them, some of them.
Yeah.
But the universities don't have to have outreach anymore for vets. They don't have to make special accommodations for vets. They don't have to give vets therapy like they're doing now if they need it. All of that goes away. The group that is benefited the most is also harmed the most. And what people are basically saying is J.D. Vance is a DEI guy, and he became the vice president of the United States. You want to know what good DEI programs are? All we're asking is we want the same damn thing. If we're qualified, hire us. We're not asking for handouts. We're asking for fairness. And it should bother every American that what Donald Trump is doing is firing people who are completely qualified for their jobs so he can replace them with unqualified hires whose only qualification is, do you think that the election in 2020 was stolen? Answer, no, you're not going to be hired. Answer, yes, you're hired. Are you qualified? Who cares? Do you go to high school? Who cares? Can you read? Who cares? As long as you're a bootlicking sycophant. That's all. And that's our tax dollars at work. I have to raise my hand and say I had wrong opinions about DEI. They were completely wrong. To some extent, I fault the Democrats, really, who should have stepped up and said, what are you talking about? This is all lies. How dare you?
Yeah. You could have had a Democratic Party that full-throatedly defended DEI and talked about how various groups actually benefit from it, talked about the barriers that people face in terms of fulfilling their full potential, and showed how these programs are designed to create fairness.
And they didn't. So where was I going to get the information? Who has time to go on the internet and do what I did? A lot of people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a real lesson for me. I was shocked by what I found. I kind of ashamed of myself that I didn't know. I think it really changed the way I thought about it, and it made me realize how they took a great program that helped millions of people, especially white women, enter into the workforce and was turned into a weapon so easily that targeted minorities in a completely undeserved, unfactual way. That was a really hard lesson to learn. You'd think I would know.
Well, you've done the work now, and now you know, and we're going to try and let other people know too.
Exactly.
Thank you all so much for watching this. We are experimenting a little bit with the channel to do this shorter, more pointed topic. Let us know what you think of that, and if you want us to keep doing stuff like this in addition to our full episodes, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and check out our Patreon, and we'll see you soon.